It's Thursday. That means one thing. It's Thursdays with Nico and his cup. Normally, when we're live, you're on your first cup and it's pretty big. So, how big is the second cup of coffee since we're doing this on tape?
Hey, what is going on? It is my second cup of coffee. It is another 20-ounce cup. It was a long night of
Uh-huh.
watching a lot of these games. It was a long night of some really good soccer. Usually I can kind of do it quickly and just watch some of the games, and I'll fast forward through. But there was such good games that, man, I think I watched quite a few of those completely from start to end. So just excited to be on with you, my man, and I want to send a huge get well soon to our guy Jason.
Yep.
It's We miss him, but I wanted to go ahead and put that out there because I know that he's still recovering from COVID. So just wishing him well.
Much love as always, and that's the other thing that has been great about the soccer community, and just giving love to everybody. And with Jason, as he's still fighting the good fight, trying to get back to full song, as they say. All right, I guess let's start with the match that meant the most to you and your footprint, Nashville and Seattle. Nashville gets the 1-0 Duke. What were some of your takeaways from this one, where Seattle going in on the juice boxes was a big road dog and ends up losing at 1-0?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, you knew that it was going to be a challenging game because of the travel, because of not having a long time to prepare and rest after a moral, physical, mental defeat, um, and some injuries. There were already a situation you knew was gonna be difficult for this team to kind of come back from when you add up what I just mentioned, right? The minutes racking up, everything that you're coming up with. Sometimes you want to have some of those guys that are your key components, that they're your go-tos, and not having them was difficult. I thought that Brian tried to do what he could with what he had available. Um, Not having a fully recovered Javier Arriaga, I think made him move the formation to a three-man back line to kind of give Sissoko a little bit more support in that back line. Uh, and I don't know if he worked all that well. Um, John, to be quite frank, I think in this one, for the first 50 or 60 minutes, Seattle was in their own third. I mean, they couldn't get out to save their lives. They got one shot in the whole first half. They There was no cohesiveness. There was no fluidity. They couldn't even connect passes, and Nashville was just outright bullying the Seattle Sounders. In the broadcast, I heard them talk about, oh yeah, well, it's the goal came in while the team was doing a good job defensively. I don't think that they were doing a good job defensively. I think they did an okay job. They were holding on, but Nashville was peppering that goal where Stephen Cleveland was the one in charge of, because Stephen Fry was out due to safety and health protocol. But he was getting peppered like uh, chicken breast. I mean, it was just coming right at him. I thought Seattle did not do a good job at keeping Nashville away from their game. They were allowing them to get into their halfway too quickly. They were falling in too much of a deep block, and they gave the reins to the home team. So a difficult one for Seattle. Mukhtar, absolutely fantastic. The goal comes off a bad takeaway from Nicolas Odero, which kind of goes back to what I just said. There was just no cohesiveness. No, this is unlikely. This is rare for this team. Nico is completely watching what his next move is going to be. Nobody talks to him. He gets dispossessed from the ball. It's a quick counter that results in a Mukhtar being in front of goal, and Mukhtar being Mukhtar just puts it away. And that was kind of it for the game because Nashville just completely dominated. So just a tough, difficult loss for Seattle in this one.
They've lost 3 of 4, and I ask this because you are closer to the situation than anyone on this side of the Mississippi River. You've lost 3 of 4. How many alarm bells are going off right now, or is this that section where you win CONCACAF Champions League, you're back up and running, you make that big push to work your way up the standings, which we knew was going to happen, and this is just that lull after that initial push? What's the alarm bells going right now?
Personally, I don't think there's alarm bells going. I think that there is a bit of an understanding that something is not quite working, but I don't think that the bad moments have been so consistent. I mean, yes, you're coming in from a Portland game that I don't know if the score really tells the whole story of the 90. Yes, Seattle didn't play well. I'm not going to get away from that. But I think that it was very circumstantial and certain things really changed the game. And you're playing with 10 guys and you're kind of pushing to try to get ahead. So you give up an extra couple of goals. But they were coming from a Toronto game where with some rotation, with some new players, they got a 2-0 win that I thought was important. So for me, there's just have been ups and downs. Ever since the Montreal game, there have been ups and downs. And because there have been some players missing because of injuries, because there has been some rotation that is kind of going to be the game plan for a while, because as you know, we're going to be having a very compacted schedule here on out. So I don't think that there's alarms, not for me at least. I don't think for Brian. I didn't hear yesterday any sort of urgency, as in desperation, or I don't know what's going on. I think they know what the problem has been. There's been a lot of changes. The midfield, especially the central midfield, has been a huge question mark since not just JP being out for the year, but Obed Vargas was a guy that they were really counting on. So now they're trying to figure out Rowe, Leyva, who's going to be the guy. Nico yesterday played in that holding mid position, which I just don't think works as well when with this specific formation or when Seattle just doesn't have possession, because you don't want Nico doing a lot of defending and you want him a little higher up the field and where he could be more impactful. I thought that maybe Danny Leyva should have started this game right next to Albert Rusnak, and maybe it would have made a difference because when he came in, that's one of the substitutions that I thought helped Seattle, where they actually felt like they had a compass because they were lost in those first 60 minutes of game. Then you bring in Bruin, you bring in Danny Leyva, and things change a little bit. They find the ball, they get some possession, they get some opportunities, some chances. So I think to conclude, John, the real answer is that for me, there's no alarms. I don't think there's any alarms for the staff, but they are looking in with a very high magnifying glass. What are the changes that they need to have so the consistency comes back to this team?
Other couple other teams I want to focus on out west, and then obviously the late game last night here to us folks on the East Coast was Cali Classico. And, you know, you discuss LAG and San Jose and its mascots and David Beckham and Sports Center's Next and signs and fights and all these kinds of things going in on the juice boxes last night. And Jarrett and I talked about this yesterday leading in. LAG was a minus 156, prohibitive favorite, understandably so, sixth in the standings going in. And San Jose was north of plus 350. So, of course, what happens? San Jose puts 3 on the board, and the Galaxy are having to fight uphill. They get the first one in the second half. Joveljic scores the with a couple of minutes to go, and it ends up being 3-2. So Cali Classico was just as normal as we anticipated. And then the lesson here is never bet any juice boxes on Cali Classico.
I'm gonna keep that in mind, man, because I would have I'm an odds guy, and when it's too far sighted, I never go for the favorite. I'd rather put maybe $10 or $100 and on the underdog. But I'm gonna keep that in mind. However, this game was it was good. It was back and forth. It was fun. There was a lot of energy, and I thought the LA Galaxy once again were affected by their Achilles heel, which is their inability to prevent attacking players from getting in dangerous positions. Araujo yesterday, that penalty kick is silly, is clumsy, is unnecessary, and it really put the LA Galaxy on their heels. So it was just a bad play. There's no reason why Araujo should have pushed to try to get anywhere when Kubali was already on the player. He has no angle. There's nowhere to go. And Araujo just rushes in and bumps into the ball carrier and makes this PK. And then from there on out, just the LA Galaxy are under heels, and San Jose gets a sense of confidence. And then right after, Jeremy Ebobisse gets another one, and the game just go their way, and they continue to push, they continue to pressure. Rovelson had a good game, but Aguirre had a awful game. I mean, it was bad. Grandsir too, defensively, just not present, not that I didn't talk about this, but Brian Smetzer talked about active defending, lack of active defending in that game. There was a lot of lack of active defending in this one with the LA Galaxy, man. So that continues to be their issue, is not being able to play good defensive games. However, it was fun because the LA Galaxy, if they have something going on for themselves, is that they have a lot of firepower up top. There's a lot of confidence, and Joveljic is just turning into a very good player, man. Both of the goals that he put in yesterday were excellent, especially the second one, the way he controls the ball, a little cut inside, little faking, and then you just put it away. So I think the LA Galaxy have some pieces there offensively, but there has to be a lot of revamping done on a defensive standpoint, because if San Jose is putting you against the wall the way they did, against the ropes, and is a 3-2 win for San Jose, then you really got some digging and some soul searching to do.
One more that I wanted to get into, and it was the one that started the week, and it was part of Copa Tejas, Austin and Houston Dynamo. And I got into this discussion with Dylan Butler yesterday. And are we now risking looking at Austin at our own peril right now, considering that they're top of the West? With everything that we've been saying about Austin this year, are we doubting them at our own peril right now, or is there still some I don't know when it comes to Austin, especially later in the year, on the road, teams chasing playoff spots, those kinds of things? Where do you sit with Austin FC right now?
Well, I think that depends. I've been high on them from the beginning. I'm not saying they're one of the top contenders in the West, because I do believe that when it comes to playoff time, it changes. It's not the regular season anymore. Certain experience and that hierarchy, I believe that's the right word, hierarquía, you say it in Spanish. There's just something that just clicks for teams like the Sounders and Portland and certain teams that just have that. I still need to see that from Austin, but in the standpoint of how good they are, man, they're great, and they just made Houston look silly yesterday. I thought that they had a great game overall. Fagundez's free kick is unbelievable. I luckily changed it into the game right before that free kick, which I was very glad to see, because he got snubbed for the MLS All-Star, by the way. Let me throw that out there. But he was very good. Urruti just loving where he's at, and you could tell that he's been a game changer for this team in so many ways. It was good to see him in this one, just not just be the routine that changes the game by moving around and doing that dirty work, by getting a score. So they got a lot of good components in this team. Love the midfield, love the way they get ahead. So I just think that this Austin team is for real. If you are doubting them at your own apparel, absolutely. If you're not taking them seriously, that's kind of on you. The only reason why I'm not putting them as a top contender in the West, like I said, is because they just haven't been there, done that. But in terms of the regular season and who they are, and are they a dangerous team, talented team? Absolutely. They know what they're doing. The identity thing that you hear me say constantly. They have a good coach. They have a pretty deep roster. They can do a lot of changes, a lot of adjustments, and they beat a good. Houston team, and I say good just by the new addition of Hector Herrera that once again comes in, subs in, and does some things well. But I just think Austin is just doing it right.
Minnesota and Sporting. Does this 1-1 draw say more about Sporting or less about Minnesota United?
I like that question.
Because you look at Minnesota United, and maybe it was the signing of the contract and finally releasing Adrian Heath out to the masses for another couple of years that started this recent run of form. And then you kind of stub your toe against Sporting Kansas City. Sporting Kansas City has been at the bottom of the West. I never thought that I would have that in a sentence. Sporting Kansas City at the bottom of the West, but Johnny Russell scores to get a 1-1 draw. So is this just something that we put in the Petri dish and put it off to the side as, okay, this is a one-off because it was midweek and all these other factors? Or, to the original question, does it say more about what Minnesota United isn't doing or should have done in this situation? Or is there a positive and a negative here in this one?
Yeah, I like the way you phrased that question. I think it says, I think you said less about Minnesota.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. To be quite frank, it's just more of a reality check. I think we both know that what had happened in Minnesota can be covered by a couple of results. And yes, they've had a good run form, but at the end of the day, the reality is there. And I think this is bringing them back a little bit into their reality. There's no doubting that Sporting Kansas City is a limited team that is at the bottom of the West for a reason. This is their worst year in a very long time. A lot of changes. Salawi playing alone up top yesterday. A lot of changes, and they're still able to really give it to a Minnesota team that is as talented as they are. After Sporting Kansas City was actually the more dangerous team over this one. So I think it just talks more about where Minnesota really is at.
Eastern Conference now. And we'll get to Atlanta United and Real Salt Lake here in a little bit. But you look at a couple of things in the East, and I'll start with Toronto and Chicago because both teams are at the bottom of the East for a reason. But Chicago puts 2 on the board against Toronto, and Toronto, they're turning into Serie A West here with bringing in Insigne. Crescito got some minutes in the match against Chicago, and it looks like Bernardeschi might be on his way in. Pozuelo headed to Inter Miami now. And Toronto is still trying to paddle as much as possible on the waterline to do something to try to turn things around. But, I still look at both of these teams and I just kind of throw my hands up in the air and go, why?
Yeah, no, this was a good one. And I think you said it correctly. Toronto is a team that we still don't know what they can provide because there's so many players that are still going to have to come in and fit and probably give this team a pretty good increase of better play. They're well coached, but at the end of the day, they haven't been a good team for the majority of the season. And you still have to figure out how these guys are going to come in and the learning curve into the season. Because this 2-0 score line tells you what Toronto has been over this season. They're an inconsistent team where they're very vulnerable in the midfield. They play very high with a honestly a poor back line. Now with Salcedo being gone and finally them getting rid of a guy that should have never been in this league, and we criticized it at that moment. But yesterday you saw it, man. I mean, Duran in that first goal is off for the races, man. I mean, he's on a freeway from the midfield on up. I mean, the setup of Toronto was awful. So I think Chicago is honestly a more talented team at this particular moment. Ezra Henderson has had a hard time putting it all together, but you're starting to see a little glimpses of what they can do over this last couple of games, at least for Chicago. They're a young team. They're quick. They're fast. I want to see Mueller continue to get more minutes. Navarro at midfield as well. Duran, if he can kind of build from this couple of this brace and get a couple of more games. I am more into Chicago than I am into Toronto, despite of all the talent that's coming in for this team. And that's just me. Call me crazy, perhaps, but I like the foundation and the depth of Chicago more than I like Toronto. So we'll still see what happens with Toronto when all this talent comes in and gets acquainted. But for Niko Moreno, I think the scoreline tells you what Chicago can really do.
Niko Moreno, El Rolo NW on the Twitters, hanging out with us for his Thursday visit here at SDH on his second cup of coffee, as he should be, in the mid-morning. You're pacing yourself through your day. DC, before we get to Atlanta United, one more that I want to focus on here. DC United Columbus Crew. And I think that Caleb Porter has now figured out that what you need to do is not start Cucho and Zelarayan. You bring them on at the half, and then things happen. Or maybe you should start them at the beginning, and then those things that happen in the second half to bring you back against DC might start from the beginning.
Yeah, man. I mean, no matter when you bring these guys on, they're going to change the game. So that is the benefit of just having right out game changers. The Cucho Hernandez, I don't know if you don't want to change it, if you're superstitious and you want to continue to make him this super sub. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to put him at a starter point, right? I mean, I am glad that I was as high as I was on Cucho Hernandez. I said he's the best signing in MLS this season. I think he's going to be the most effective, most productive. And in 74 minutes or less, 2 appearances, both coming off the bench. He scored 3 goals. He has been outright incredible. He has scored in all ways and fashions, chipped in to the corner with a little bit of bent, flying in with a flying header. I mean, the guy is just giving you a gambit and a showcase of what he can do in this league. And that's what you get when you get a 23-year-old player at the top of his game, coming in from a top league, motivated, ready to go, ready to become the face of MLS. I mean, that's what a guy with his talent, with his age, wants to come and do. I'm coming into a league that's on the rise, that I know the type of exposure that it can have globally. This could be a stepping stone for me to go into a better team. Maybe I'm no longer in Watford. Maybe from here on out, I'll go to Man City, or I'll go to, I don't know, the Bundesliga, to a top team like Dortmund. I mean, that's what a guy like that does, and he's motivated, ready to go. So, yeah, Columbus is going to be a dangerous team, man. No matter when you put these guys on the field, it's amazing. Lucas Zelarayan once again has this smile on his face. I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning of the season, last season as well, there were moments where he was just he's having to do it all from the free kick standpoint. He has to do it all from trying to finish. I mean, he just didn't have nobody. Now he has a guy, and every time they score, they're hugging and they're having a good time. These 2 guys are going to be dangerous, man. They're going to be very dangerous.
Now that Wayne Rooney, actually, he is still a consultant. He's consultant extraordinaire, I guess, for DC United, soon to be head coach. You had to do something after 7 on the board, which really should have been 10 for Philly. I'm serious. I mean, you miss a PK, and there were other opportunities. It was that bad. Wayne Rooney comes in, and he's now going to be in somewhat short order, in order. He'll be the new head coach at DC United. What do you think about Rooney in DC? Although I think you and I can agree that this year is just a wash, and it's more about him getting adjusted to life in Major League Soccer as a coach.
Man, I might get killed for this, but to Nico, this whole Wayne Rooney thing, it's a gimmick, man. It's an auto-tune in the back of a bad song, of a bad voice. It's just a quick fix that you want people to forget about what just happened a couple of weeks ago. I get the appeal. And I get why everybody's going crazy. Oh my God, it's Wayne Rooney, and he's gonna bring Luis Suarez in, and oh my God. But star players that go into coaching don't always work out well. For one, they haven't worked well here in the United States with teams in MLS. So for a team that biggest problem is in the managerial general office from up top. That have brought in guys to be coaches and have not given them the time to succeed, that they have brought in players like Edison Flores and then move them away. I mean, there's such a circus in DC United that for me, it is nothing but a gimmick and a way to just give people something to celebrate when I don't know how much impact it's going to have. And maybe I'm in the minority on this one, my guy. And maybe you might not call me into these shows anymore, but that's literally what I feel it is, man. That's just me.
Well, I mean, I think that this button got pushed a lot faster after losing 7-0 than it would have been otherwise. DC is, is it fair to say, if you say that DC is a dumpster fire, are you insulting dumpsters?
I might be, man. I might be, because I don't know if I would just. I might rather coach San Jose than I would DC United. I mean, I get that the money's there, and there's possibility to bring in probably better players, obviously. But at the end of the day, the type of expectations that this club has and the way they handle their business and the way they've handled this team over the last couple of seasons, man, I just might rather just try to be the first guy to really fix San Jose than be the guy that comes in to this dumpster fire in DC.
You ain't kidding. So I'm definitely this season for me with Chad Ashton giving it to Wayne Rooney. It's like, yeah, okay, yeah, great, fine. You're on the touchline. More power to you, Mazel Tov. And I want to see the investment that DC wants to do in the off season and see how they want to try to rearrange things for Rooney's first full season in MLS. I'm like, all right, I'm going to sit there and look at you this year. I'm looking at the off season and figure out how they want to address issues with DC United with Wayne Rooney in charge.
I mean, there's components. Right? I mean, there's Love Taxi. Yeah. I really like Estrada. I mean, there's some players there, right? But once again, man, I just don't trust the way that organization is ran, and sometimes it doesn't matter who comes in and the type of players, or whether Olsen is your coach or now Wayne Rooney. It just doesn't seem to have that final product to just be a real contender, man. I just haven't seen it, so I can't trust it.
Yep. Atlanta United gets a big win at home against RSL, and Ronaldo Cisneros gets another brace. It's like it's either a brace for Ronaldo or it's nothing on the board. But brace. Six goals. I mean, you see, and you got to see the relationship that seems to be forming with Thiago Almada and the folks that will be in front of him. But in this most recent instance last night, as we're talking, you got to see the relationship with Ronaldo Cisneros running in behind and pinpoint passing from Thiago Almada. Joseph with 3 matches in basically a week. They did this a couple weeks ago with the Toronto Red Bulls NYC circuit, where it was 3 and 9 days. It was 90 minutes, 27 and 90. So you see that again this go around. But Almada and Cisneros, Moreno, you're seeing a lot of imagination there, and it was a big win for Atlanta United.
It was a huge win against a good team. you have to give credit for everybody who's been criticizing Gonzalo Pineda. You got to give him credit for bringing in Cisneros, a guy that's worked, that they've needed even more than they probably ever thought. He's been good, man. He's a good finisher, gives you a lot of intensity and effort. And I believe Gonzalo said something to the likes of, "I need warriors, not heroes," or something of that nature. I like that, man, and that's what Cisneros kind of gives you. Um, for me, Almada is a guy that's gonna be great in this league, man. I love how much uh, strength he can put into a shot with little space. He could put it just about anywhere. His passing is great, and you saw that yesterday. His ability to carry the ball and find players. Love Marcelino Moreno, one of my favorite players to watch when he's on, especially. Rosero yesterday was good, a lot better than he was the game prior to that. He gets that interception before the second goal, I believe, that Atlanta gets. It was just a bit of a sample of what this team can do. One, if they were healthier. Two, if every player can really get out there and put the maximum effort, because that's something that's been questioned. It's something that Gonzalo Pineda in the game before this said, right? He kind of questioned that effort. They didn't have that fight. He promised a better team. He said, "I promised a better product. They're going to be more. They're going to fight more. They're going to play better," and they did. So I've been in several shows, especially in Spanish, defending Pineda for the circumstances. They're not excuses. They're circumstances that he has had to deal with this season and still have this team where they are, and not at the basement, not sharing, that bunk bed with DC United or Chicago. So you got to give them in credit. In this one, I thought that you saw that. So to just kind of conclude it all, I thought it was a very good game from Atlanta United, both from strategic, confidence, intensity, and it could be a locker room building moment for this team. So I don't want to get too high on it, right? But Real Salt Lake is a very good team. And you still got some defending issues. I mean, you saw Savarino kind of be able to cross that ball in, and then I forgot who gets the header for Real Salt Lake, but just completely unmarked and puts it away. So there are changes there that need to be made. But I thought that this was a big win for Atlanta.
Yeah, Johan Koppelhoff, who I did not have on the scoring bingo card at all, got his first Major League Soccer goal on the.
There you go. That's what it was.
The entry from Justin Miram. All right, let's go into the weekend that will be. You've got, once again, it is rivalry week. If I could get my upper plate to work, man, I've had problems saying rivalry week all week long. Sponsored by a beer that has a green bottle and a red star that's not sponsoring us here at SDH yet. So everybody knows who it is, but we ain't mentioning their name till they come with the sponsor dollars. You look at rivalry week, and for you and Seattle, it's Chicago, which I guess goes to the old schoolness of rivalries. But when you look at the matchups coming up this weekend, 7 on Saturday, 7 on Sunday, which ones stand out to you?
Yes, and you're right. It was just Samir with that assist. I'm sorry, I corrected that. I don't know. For some reason, he was on my mind. There are some good games here coming up. That Chicago game is interesting just because is that reunion between Ezra and Brian. Kind of a mentor. Brian didn't really like that term, but I threw it up there. But he just said, they're colleagues and they both learn from each other because that's who Brian is. But I'm excited to see that particular game. Like I just said it, I'm not going to repeat it. I think Chicago's on the rise here, so it'll be a good one. Really want to watch that Inter Miami Charlotte. Maybe not everybody's favorite, but for me, I want to start seeing Pozuelo get out there. This Charlotte team. That has had some ups and downs. I think as of recent have really been impressive, or at least for me, they have. That 4-1 win over Nashville was big, and it was dominant, and it was exciting. So I kind of want to see what that Inter Miami Charlotte game has going on. But however, that Saturday, I'm gonna have my popcorn ready. I'm gonna have a nice cold beer for that FC Dallas Austin. I mean, that one is gonna be an exciting one. I think it's gonna be a real benchmarker for where Austin really is. FC Dallas has not been perfect. They're coming from I want to say a tough loss against New York City, because I thought that they dominated the second part of that game, and they really grew into it. So I want to see this one. I want to see where FC Dallas is with their ups and downs. Which Dallas do we get? The Dallas from earlier in the season, where Areola was just killing the league and Ferreira was putting three away, and then the Austin that we're gonna get in this one. So that's probably my favorite matchup of Saturday.
Sunday, you've got Atlanta United against the purple team from Central Florida. You've got Hudson River Derby. You've got Hell is Real. Nashville hosting LAFC. That one's going to be a fun one. RSL is at home after having traveled here to Atlanta to go back to play Sporting. San Jose and Houston. Portland and Vancouver is a part of Cascadia. What about your Sunday viewing?
Definitely starting off the day right, and I'm watching that Atlanta-Orlando game. That game is always exciting, especially when Joseph Martinez is in there. The way he instigates that team and that fan base and that
Father's
crowd.
Day, baby. Father's Day in mid-July.
I absolutely love it. I think that grows into a rivalry. Orlando City is an exciting team right now. Facundo Torres is scoring, and they're getting I think some results from having a very good goalkeeper that just keeps you in absolutely every game. So this is going to be a fun one. Really want to watch that one. The Red Bulls New York game is also for me a big one, because New York City's gotten a couple of results. They haven't been perfect, but they've managed to regain a little bit of that momentum and confidence that they had with Ronnie Dyla. But now in this Classico, in this derbies, that's when you know where you're at. So I love it when you get pushed and challenged and you get to see what teams are really like. I think this is a good one. This is going to be a big one for both of the teams, for both Red Bulls and New York City. And finally, just so I don't bore you to death, to go with probably the clear cut favorite in this one. Yes, Portland and Vancouver is the Cascada rivalry, but I don't know if people are excited to see this game because of the quality and where the teams are in the standings. So I'll go with the Nashville LAFC, man. Watching Mukhtar, Leal, CJ Sapong against this LAFC team that will probably either start Bell or put it Bell in some point of this game, with everything, the reflectors that are surrounding Los Angeles, with everything that has happened with LAFC. So I think this is a good game. It's a big one. It's one that I think everybody's excited to watch. So yeah, I'll go with that one.
All right, time for the plug before you go. What's going on these days that folks need to listen to and read when it comes to everything that is either coming from your pen, from your fingers on a keyboard, or from those golden tones?
Absolutely. I am working into getting a one-on-one with Danny Leva, just a younger player that I think has a lot of potential, that is been put into a position here with the Seattle Sounders where he can really display who he is. Brian Smetzer, I asked him about bringing him on yesterday. Despite the result, I thought he was a spotlight, a bright light, one of the game changers yesterday. So I want to talk to him about where he's at, how challenging it's been in an organization that is as successful, but there's always a positional battle. He's been with this team for a very long time, and maybe hasn't been able to really breakthrough, because there's been Ovid Vargas, there's been so many other players in those positions, where I just want to talk to him about that journey of being with the Sounders. I believe he's out of Las Vegas. coming in as this young prospect that everybody wanted to see, and then still not being able to get there, but being successful with the team. And now you have your shot. So I think it's going to be an interesting one there at Pulso Sports. And I'm going to do it in English. He's bilingual, but as I told you before, we've gotten a lot of Spanish content, but I really want to do a little bit more in English for the audience. So I'll probably do this one in English.
El Rolo NW at Pulso Sports. Niko, as always, enjoy that second cup of coffee. I know you're heading toward your brunch hour and your lunch hour and hanging out with the fam. Thanks again for hanging out with us on a Thursday. We will catch up with you next week.
All right. Appreciate it, my guy.